Phoebe Bridgers is back to terrorize us emotionally. Lost Weekend, her third album and first solo album since 2020's Punisher, feels like checking in with an old friend and learning what they've been up to, what they've been grieving, and finding reconnection after losing touch. So here's a quick recap for you guys. For those of you who don't know Bridgers, she is an indie pop phenom who broke out nearly a decade ago with Stranger in the Alps, which was a critical darling. I loved that record when it first dropped. It established her as a songwriting wunderkind. Along with Lucy Dacus and Julian Baker, she formed the mega indie trio Boy Genius. They won 3 Grammys for their debut record, The Record, 2 years ago in 2024. Bridgers' last record, Punisher, debuted in 2020, and it was a sad girl staple that scored her solo Grammy noms, an SNL musical guest spot, and a stronger following. Swifties will recognize Bridgers for her feature on the Red Vault track Nothing New, where Bridgers herself would serve as an opener for the Eras Tour and would feature on SZA's Ghost in the Machine for SOS, which actually did win Best Pop Duo Group in 2024. Bridgers ended up taking a hiatus, one that ended this May with a surprise show in Roswell, New Mexico. It was a phone-free show. The wait has officially ended with Lost Boys released in June. It was the first single off Lost Weekend, which has dropped on August 14th to mass acclaim. But what did I think? Here are some overall thoughts. Lost Weekend is a dense work. It is 16 tracks, 53 minutes of some of the best production that I've actually heard all decade. No hyperbole. The first listening experience on headphones in the dark, par the course. For something as intimate as this, it was a mistake because I was bawling. Listening to it again on speakers in the daytime allowed me to appreciate the nuances and atmospheric choices much better once I got over the lyricism. Bridgers anchors this album on some hefty thematic material. Most of this record initially felt opaque and intimidating in the wake of it being dedicated to her father, who had passed years prior. I've seen many people emphasize this record as a famous giving me discomfort or dissociation record. That is an incorrect way of looking at this. I think it's a lamentation of relationships ending, forming, checking in on yourself as the process of healing, or at least moving forward, happens. I saw some of the press turn towards Bridgers' candidness regarding the dissolution of her relationship with Paul Mescal, who had she'd been engaged to at one point. The Governor's Waltz, one of my highlights off the album, alludes to Gracie Abrams, who ironically released an album earlier this year which featured Paul in writing. On this track in particular, Bridgers alludes to Abrams having the same sheets on her bed, which served as the B stage on her tour last year apparently. A few referred to this as shade, but I thought the song actually ended on a rather kind, bittersweet note. Bittersweet is the strongest adjective for this record. This is extremely evident throughout the project, from its sinewy sort of track listing to the devastating voicemail from her father on Never Going Back, a track whose construction itself speaks to Bridgers' talent for intention. The simplicity of the vocals and the lyrics prior to the note itself, combined with snippets that she, has shared with us in previous albums regarding the complicated nature of that relationship, it felt like a pot that was left to simmer and finally boil over. This album's melancholia is constant. It is cohesive, and there are swings still here that are taken that register as anthemic and fresh. Bobby, an ode to her beau Burnham. What a sentence. Burnham is actually a co-writer on 7 of the tracks. Bobby is a straight-up shoegazy love song that's just charmingly very fatalistic in Phoebe fashion, but downright beautiful. Liberty Tree continues that thread with indie rock sounds and a haunting outro that leans into ambient. On a storytelling level, this is a multiple listen album. It's a very cyclical narrative that's running throughout the aforementioned Bobby thread, starting in Kill Me, then carrying towards Liberty Tree. That's just one of many stories, but I do think the core story is the one that was started on the opening track, The Outside, one that haunts the narrative throughout until the closing reprise. With Bridgers' work, especially on this album, genre has become a paintbrush. We see forays into country and bluegrass like Haunted, crushing minimalistic balladry on Other Plans. Keys's Cameron Winters provides a slam dunk of a feature on I Can't Wait. But still, we get these odd tracks like Panorama, cut entirely from raw instrumentation almost, yet Bridgers managed to track list and sequence all of these raw, cathartic works into something that really is an album only she could pull off. On this album, I realized Phoebe is a mastermind. Her production posse, formed of Ethan Gruska, Tony Berg, Alex G, and Pop's favorite punching bag, Jack Antonoff, more than passes muster, each lending expertise, texture, and perspective to really bolster her vision. However, at the end of the day, it's still her intent, whether it's couplets that pay off many tracks later, or the use of vocoder almost like a highlighter nudging us towards specific passages in her tome. That is the star of the record. As per usual, before giving my final score, here's my track by track. The Outside is a chilling opener from the vocoder tinge opening verse that recounts a funeral. Those lyrics against the vocoder really capture the conflicted nature of mourning a parent who wasn't perfect. The chorus has her vocals come crystal clear and beautiful to kind of illustrate and recognize what it's like being in another zone. Second verse recounts crowd surfing at a show sometime after, but there's still this feeling of the presence of her father. She was still feeling him with her, and then she launches into that chorus again, and then a gorgeous instrumental takes us away. Lost Boys is the lead single, I think for good reason. It's a paean to Peter Pan, and also that 80s film about the vampires, apparently. This track is just a dreamy, jaunty track that is something that would have been the song of the summer in a just world. I love the track. It is a confrontation of Peter Pan syndrome, where adults kind of resist and fight against adulthood, drawing themselves into dangerous fantasies and make-believe with real consequences, as laid out by that video. The bridge is the most enchanting element to me. I love the compassionate pull she has to commune and forgive with the Lost Boys, but then we get that screaming 1, 2, 3 before the final chorus. Heal Me is the stripped down track. I think this one was the grower for me. It captures bleak times that we're in with those opening lines. There's a quick reference to her fellow Boy Genius bandmates getting married. The chorus speaks to this fear that the machine in that last song is going to kill her. It's either the world or just the industry. We're introduced to Bobby in verse 2, flipping all that she knew of love on its head. And we discover in that second chorus that it's a reference to burgeoning love as we get this outro, "It is over" in Persian, and a call to disappear. The Governor's Waltz is a sprawling song that pieces together different memories. Verse 1 refers to her performing at the Governor's Ball, hiding away and recognizing that she kind of has no nostalgia for this previous lover. The first chorus has this really cool juxtaposition of a lack of intimacy and then this horrific request for this man to jump or end things, even if he never thought of it. Verse 2 is brutal. She calls some kids pretending to be adults in a trench coat, and then she ends that couplet saying, "He deserved better, but he still wanted her." That next chorus evolves this idea into feeling insignificant, leading into this haunting vocal bridge where we get a final chorus where she recognizes in hindsight that this end was not a heartbreak, but a freedom given to her. A freedom to shed this facade of a relationship and let someone else play the part that her ex needed someone to play. Then we got Bobby, which was an immediate fave of mine. I think it's so upbeat and magical sounding for Phoebe. There's a warmth that really cuts through the track, reflected in the jangly drums and the strings in the track. I think it's a loving ode to someone that she saw on a screen and now she's with. He's too tall to fit through door frames. He's the kind of person that she'd kill friends for. It drips with affection when she sings "This Could Be the End of Wanting." She points out their opposites. He sings in the shower, she talks to herself, but it all works out, and the outro jokingly frames Bobby as like a brand new car, like this lottery prize. Out of jest. Lost Weekend is a verse sang over a very chilling, simple instrumental interpolated from Damon Jurado's The Last Great Washington State. It's this confessional track that feels like a string of consciousness confession to someone who's known her whole life, known her the best, and now she's feeling lost because she's lost some. I initially interpreted this as her addressing herself. We get this very trippy closing section that feels like you're kind of being cut across pieces in space and time. Haunted is a very pretty bluegrassy track that features Julian and Lucy on the track as vocalist. This track covers the dissociative state in some ways with that daydreaming and sleep issues metaphor. She sings about touring with her friends. One of my favorite lines is, "There's a difference between lying and deciding not to say something." This is something that is echoed later on thematically. This track reminded me a little bit of Stranger in the Alps with the ghost imagery and the vibes. Panorama is mostly instrumental. I do think that this is a liminal space for us to sit through and really comprehend what she's talking about, and then she calls her attention back that she's been visited. Still Standing, absolutely brutal. It squares away some complicated emotions regarding her abusive father. The chorus paints dour contrast between standing in her prom dress and then standing in the black of a funeral outfit. Verse 2 recalls her witnessing her mother out of sorts because of her father, while chorus 2 covers the horror that kids know better than parents understand, but she still grieves in the sense that he's really gone. Liberty Tree recounts happy memories with Bobby at the mall of his hometown that's dying. They're acting like kids in the photo booth. He looks a lot like his mom. They've had a fight, but they're still going. The second chorus is sweet but melancholic in the way that she asks Bobby to hold off dying because she just cannot bear to live in a world without him. It's just so romantic. Then there's this chilling random smash to an instrumental that just feels like static. Never going back feels like a cathartic declaration, like a line in the sand. It's her father being gone. It's trying a new way to be an artist with distance. It's not being alone because she has Bobby. And then we get this voicemail that's just heartbreaking. Other plans, according to Phoebe herself, she doesn't actually know what this is about, but she has a kind of private meaning to it that she's deciphering for herself. I did interpret it as a snapback to reality after being eaten up by dissociation, a weird return to the world after a fog. Lost Parade is this chilling instrumental that sounds like a parade. It borrows the melody of Graceland 2. That's something that a big Phoebe fan that I'm friends with mentioned to me. I Can't Wait, featuring Cameron Winters from Geese, feels like a reconciliation of self after feeling torn in two. This became clear to me in the bridge where she talks about Jekyll and Hyde coming back together. She's the same person even if she feels contradictory. As Above seems to be about the headspace of travel. She sings a lot about being in planes throughout the album, and that is what is required of her when she's traveling for tour. So she relays these moments, pondering about Air Force One, heights, Coney Island's Wonder Wheel, and, how her inner life and outer world will collide as time goes. The album closes on Lost Weekend Reprise, which sees her realize that her father isn't coming back, not as a bird. She's reconciling weird learnings from him. The line, "And the government isn't trying to kill you, they just don't care if they kill you," echoes an earlier couplet's construction, and she pays off a line from the original Lost Weekend on "You love me and I won't ever let you forget, not yet." It shows that she's fine with being known now, whether by Bobby, her friends, her fans, the world, but she does still need to know if she is loved. Overall, this album is worth the wait. It is exhausting to listen to. It is brutal, but I think it is so expertly produced. It's a 9.3 out of 10 for me. It's up there as one of those contenders for AOTY. And it was kind of hard to review because there's just so much to unpack there. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this quick review. Let me know what you thought about Lost Weekend below. If there's any other albums that you want me to check out. Shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. A shout out to my subscribers. I love you guys. Subscribe to my Substack. I'm gonna start posting like horror short stories there to kind of build up the mood for Halloween. I do write prose and I love sharing my writings with the world. I can't wait to see you guys soon on my next video. Thank you so much.